first item on the agenda is adjustments to the agenda, and we have a few. Cynthia, do you want to list them?
Under executive session, we need to discuss a student issue and negotiations. And under new business, we have a resignation. We need to pass a grant assurance, and we have an athletic co-curricular nomination.
And are there any other adjustments to the agenda? The next item, well, actually, I have an adjustment to the agenda. As we get started, I just wanted to recognize two board members that are serving on their last official school board meeting. We do have a few other meetings before the month is out, and both Gail Dransfield and Priscilla Armstrong will be leaving us, and Keith has been reelected to a second term, so we are thrilled to have you with us. We are also glad to have John Ridge and Kevin Sweeney join us as two new board members. But as Gail and Priscilla leave us, we have something to thank them for, so if you would come up. We have a very large item for Gail, and it's over here. Let me go get the Priscilla's. Very cute. Yours isn't quite so big, but anyway, I want to thank both Gail and Priscilla for all of the many, many hours they have spent on the school board. Gail has been the chair of the policy for this past year. She has chaired the pool study group. You have served on countless committees. And Priscilla, thank you for all your time with the negotiations. We probably spent more time together than we ever wanted to, but we really appreciate having both of you on the board and all the hours we have spent together, and we will miss you very, very much. And watch us every Tuesday night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good luck to everyone.
You have to take that with you.
I get to open it?
Yeah, open it.
Yeah. Can I open it?
Open.
You open it. Oh, it's a cardboard box. Flat for Christmas. It's hard to open.
I don't have anything.
If you rip all the paper off and turn it on its side, it would be very easy to get out.
Oh,
This is for your new garden. For your new garden.
oh, isn't that lovely?
Thank you. Thank you. Come see the garden.
Go by how easy they are to wrap.
I'm not going to take it out of the bag, but thank you very much. And I want to thank all my fellow board members. It's been a wonderful 3 years, and I really will miss it. And good luck to everyone.
The next item on the agenda is approval of the April 8th regular school board meeting and the April 30th special meeting. Changes to the minutes. I had some on page 32 of the April 8th. The times in the middle should be 7:27. There are two of them. Are there any other adjustments? Ann?
On page 32B, item 10A, I believe the last name on the list should have been deleted.
I need to go back and check whether we did it contingent upon certification.
I don't think so.
That is the status. Do you remember, Mary? Whether that name was deleted or not?
No, I
Or
don't
whether we
think
did
it was on the list. I think we took it
My
off the
memory was
list.
it wasn't on the list.
All right.
I think it was taken off the list, I'm sorry.
Are there any other adjustments to the agenda? I'll do this. Therefore, the minutes stand approved. The next item is the comments by the high school and middle school reps. And do we have a middle school rep? Yep.
Hi. We just received the results of the National French Contest and the National Spanish exam. And these exams were given throughout the United States in March, and they are taken by students in the 8th grade and 12th grade through the 12th grade. Some students in the middle school are receiving awards for earning high state rankings. And the results of the National French Contest are Will Braff and Melissa Joshua tied for first place in Maine on the Level 01 exam. Aaron Crane placed third in the state on Level 01 exam, and Emily DeLong placed first in the state of Maine on Level 01 bilingual exam. The results of the National Spanish exam, Level 1, are Elizabeth Geyer placed first in Maine, Katie Dana placed second, Nell Bridger placed third, Alex Darcy and Katie Cada tied for fifth place, Rebecca Garfield placed 7th, Caitlin Wendell placed 8th, and Katie Davison placed 10th. Also, Elizabeth Geyer will be receiving a national award for placing third in the United States on the Level 1 Spanish exam. And,
Could you give those names to Mrs. Bruns at some point so she can put it in the minutes?
okay. The social last Friday was a success. We had many parent chaperones, and it went really well. And yesterday, Tom Allen came to speak with our 8th grade class, and we thought that was a great privilege because he has a tight schedule. And he told us about his job and his place in the government. Mike Weber, who's a motivational speaker, spoke to us about 2 weeks ago, and he gave us a speech about attitude, and he was a real positive way of getting the point across. And the results of the asset survey were given to us, and what they did was some high schoolers came and the coalition came to talk to us about it, and that was their way of showing us the results before the papers got it. And the first Chewonki group left yesterday, and the next group will be going next Monday. And the 7th grade are doing boat races and science, and for physical education we just finished the physical fitness test, and that's all.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you. And high school rep?
First, I'd like to start off saying that I know a bunch of you have gotten calls from students in the high school about coming to visit the high school, and I can tell you that the people who haven't gotten calls, you're going to receive them shortly about that. And the thing I'd like to talk about, I don't know if you guys have gotten a letter from us or not, but it deals with the implementation of a March vacation. And students on the SAC drafted a letter, which I was supposed to read, and it goes, members of the school board. A letter was sent home to all students of Cape Elizabeth schools with report cards earlier this year regarding the fact that the school board is considering a proposal that would eliminate the 2 current 1-week spring vacations, those in February and April, and replace them with 1 week in March. To preface, we would like to say that we appreciate the fact that the community was notified of such consideration and appreciate as well the opportunity to voice our opinions regarding this matter. Cape Elizabeth High School has an amiable atmosphere. People freely associate with one another. Because of this, word travels, and as student representatives of the high school, it is our responsibility to know the general consensus. All year we have done our best to represent the high school by concentrating on the issues at hand and doing our best to keep an ear to the ground. Because of our attempt to gather as much information from the students as possible, because that information is so easily accessible, we feel that our opinion today represents on basis the opinion of the students at the Cape Elizabeth High School. This is a pressing issue in the high school. It is the topic of constant conversation, and in general, the students disagree with the implementation of a vacation in March as a substitute for the previous setup. This consensus is the result of much thought and not simply an attempt to salvage free time. The school year would end earlier by 3 days, and there would still be 2 long weekends, so when considering this topic, free time is not an issue. There are, however, many more urgent reasons to dispute the new plan. Cape Elizabeth is a town that sends many of its children to private schools, and while siblings might in fact still attend Cape. Because of this, since the February and April system is the most prevalent currently in the state, family vacations would become virtually impossible due to the fact that families would never be free for the same week. This is a problem that would affect many families of Cape Elizabeth and a strong argument against the March vacation plan. Also, Cape Elizabeth provides a home for many working parents. These parents have vacation time, which in most cases has already been adjusted to fit in with that of their children. In some cases, this is non-negotiable. This would be a major issue facing Cape families and is thus a negative aspect of the plan. As students, we can honestly say that the time from midterms to finals is the most intense of the whole year, and it is particularly important to be motivated due to the plethora of distractions offered by the warm spring weather and the onset of summer. Anxiety levels are high. It is difficult enough for students to concentrate with 2 weeks off, and these weeks are treasured by the high school students. Without these weeks, I can only imagine the disastrous results, which would doubtlessly include lack of motivation and school spirit, a decrease in grade point averages and athletic energy, and an overall feeling of exhaustion throughout the entire community. The students deserve a break, and 1 week in March is not sufficient. Other than these reasons, which are certainly enough to justify the abandonment of this proposition, there is the matter of families with timeshare condominiums and the fact that we would be volunteering ourselves to be the guinea pigs of the state for this vacation plan. We don't need this. In fact, speaking for the high school students, a huge group that would be affected by this change, we don't want this. Please consider our statement when making our decisions and realize that, though apparently beneficial on the surface, this plan would cause difficult times for most of Cape Elizabeth's families. This is not a good idea. Please listen to our input with open ears, and we are confident that you will make the right decision for the students and families of Cape Elizabeth. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Did that letter get sent? Because I don't think we've received it.
I'm not sure if it has been sent or not.
Yeah.
If you'd like a copy, I probably...
Well, that's fine. I actually have an envelope that we're keeping a file, or I was going to ask board members if they wanted to keep them on file. I don't know if you've read the school board packet, but you would then know where we are on the calendar issue. But I thought it was important to keep track of the letters and things that we got as we consider this in future years. So I actually would love a copy to add to the file.
You probably have mine right here.
Okay. That sounds great.
Are you talking about the prom? You're not.
Are there any other issues? I just wanted to bring up, too, that we have a parking issue with student spaces at the high school, and we're hoping to get a couple of students involved with coming up with the solution for next year.
Okay.
And Mr. Ray and Sue Weatherby and board members or so will sit down and do that, and we really would like your input on that, but it is an issue to be solved with limited number of spaces.
Okay.
Great. Next item on the agenda is communications, and I just wanted to announce that at a special board meeting, the board did take a vote to approve Cynthia as our 2-year full-time superintendent, and we are thrilled to have her. And we also approved the nomination of Peter Dawson as the high school principal. And just in case anybody missed those announcements, we are very, very lucky to have them both. Are there any other communications? Nope. Next item is the superintendent's report.
First item was to reconvene the Space Study Committee. And this is something that we've talked about and certainly came up during the budget deliberations, and that's sort of a reminder to you. I don't know whether you want to wait till the new board is seated or whether you want to put out a call for volunteers or how you want to handle that.
I guess Ann, go ahead.
That's something we actually have to do with the town council, because that originally was a joint committee. And if we're going to have citizens involved, and I don't know if we're going to go to that level at this point, we need to talk to them because they gathered the applications through their appointments committee.
And when we come to doing school board reps for these kind of committees, I would think our June organizational meeting is when we'll assign most of those out, so people can start thinking, but we have a number of committees like that with the pool and all. But if you could work on with Michael how we do the process, that would be great.
And by the same token, the Furnishings Committee, we've talked about reconvening. I don't want to lose track of those two things as we go to the summer.
Charlie, are you going to set a date for the furnishings?
We're trying to corral the original people
Great,
from the building notes.
okay.
They seem to be mostly administrators and or a couple of teachers.
Ann Holt,
Yeah.
and Susie Van Wy, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And the rest were all administrators.
and I think there's someone from the Pond Cove
Yeah,
Arts
she's
thing.
also called me.
Great, told her to.
I think it's-
Thank you. Well, Charlie, if you could let us know of a date as soon as possible, that would be great. And Cynthia, go ahead.
System principal selection, we have been interviewing, we had 3 internal applicants from the high school who are interested in being a system principal for a 1-year basis. We interviewed those applicants this week, and after the regular meeting tonight, in executive session, we will discuss the possibility of moving on an appointment for one of those positions.
Thank you. And the next item is the principal's report, and we will start at the middle school.
Phil is going to do it.
Phil's going to do it.
Well, obviously, I'm not Nancy Hutton. She is out of town, asked me to present a couple of things. First of all, we would like to extend our appreciation to Gail and Priscilla for their efforts and their long hours of work, not only for the board and the system, but for the middle school. The behavior task force that's been meeting with middle school administrators and teachers continues. There was a meeting last week. I think there's another meeting this week. And I think a lot of their efforts probably will generate a good hard look at our policy handbook within the middle school and how we deal with things. And I think I would echo Nancy's feelings that I think it's timely. I think that it's something that perhaps each of the buildings ought to go through occasionally to take a good hard look at themselves. So that continues. We have a band concert coming up on the 20th at 7:30. As Caitlin said, the Search Institute met for the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades yesterday. They seem to go fairly well. The 8th grade met with Congressman Allen. He was invited in by Jamie Michaud, our 8th grade social studies and language arts teacher. It was kind of a fun assembly. He spoke to the kids about what he does, and then gave them an opportunity to chase them around the cafeteria a little bit verbally. He wasn't put on the spot, but I think they raised some good comments. They raised some good questions as to some of the national issues. But I think it was a nice hour for both Congressman Allen and for ourselves. And Nancy called Chewonki. The 2 groups that left yesterday morning are still there. They seem to be enjoying themselves, other than a few raindrops. It looks as if they'll have a pretty good week, and the other 5 classes are gearing up for Monday morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil. High school.
First of all, I'd like to also extend my appreciation to Gail and Priscilla for their time on the board and help with many of the issues at the high school as well as for the system. We hosted on May 2nd the Special Olympics at Cape High School. This was the Cumberland County Special Olympics. This was our first endeavor to tie this in with our Day of Giving or Day of Serving, and we had approximately 100 students participate in that, as well as many community members, school board members who were involved, and there were about 250 people. And I can't say students from Special Olympians because there were people from the ages of 6 to 60. It was just an amazing day. The weather wasn't that cooperative. It was windy and cold, but by the afternoon, it was pleasant enough to say it was a great day. We have received calls from the Special Olympics Committee thanking us for hosting it. It went as well as they've ever had it run, and I hope that this becomes, we had talked about this becoming an annual tradition, getting more kids involved, more staff involved, and making it a real day of serving for these people. I'd like to thank Marilyn Mahalik, who really helped as a parent liaison to Special Olympians and helped me and the organization with members of that committee. And again, I'm very proud to have been part of that and to have seen our kids involved. Secondly, I'd like to thank the High School Parents Association. They hosted their annual spring luncheon for our faculty. The food's always great. The desserts are outstanding. It's funny, you always have people visit, and they say, is it always like this? You know, as the meals are presented. It's really a wonderful day, and thanks to the parents. One thing I had asked Mary to give you, and I'm sorry they came late today, was a college admissions report. And again, the reason I didn't get it into your packets, I wanted to have it as updated as possible, which was today. But you can see of the 119 graduates this year, 110 will be going on to postgraduate studies. 3 will be entering the military. The rest will be going into employment. What I also wanted to include is not only where students are attending, but on pages, the third and fourth pages, to show you where kids have been accepted. Because we have many students who decide on a particular college, but have been also accepted at a university or college of quite distinction. So the idea was to give you an idea of where our kids are applying, how many kids are getting accepted, and then where they're choosing to go. And I hope that's helpful to you as a board to see the quality of schools that a lot of our kids, and the variety of where they're applying in places in the Mid-Atlantic states and as far as Stanford. So we're real pleased with the results. It has been a real successful year from our guidance director, and she's real pleased with the results. Any questions about the admissions piece here that from any of the board? Okay.
Oh, looks great.
I also included in your packet, and I'd like to announce the exam schedule. Seniors will begin Friday, June 6th, and that will run through Wednesday, June 11th. Gives our faculty a day on Thursday to get final grades in for seniors, with graduation being on the 13th. Underclassmen will start June 16th with exams, and that will end on June 19th. The rotation, we reverse from mid-years. Period 4 and 8 exam will be the first day, 3 and 7, 2 and 6, 1 and 5. That's all in the newsletter, if you've seen that, but I'd just like to announce that tonight. Also in the process of filling 2 math positions. We have approximately, Mary, about 24 applications have come through, and they're at the high school. We're working with the high school math department, and unless DeMoll states otherwise, I hope to be involved with Randy and the board, and the members of the board, but also the math department in the selection of those people. We have some outstanding candidates. There are a lot of people with already quite a bit of experience that they can bring to Cape High School, but we're real pleased with you, and they're still coming in on a day-to-day basis, as Mary calls me, on a daily basis. 3 more are in, Rick, so we'll continue that. Also, some important dates to mention. This Friday will be our junior prom dinner dance, and I know Gail had asked the question. I want to tell you, we've had some students and parents who've been tremendously involved and successful in really promoting this as a chem-free dinner dance sort of activity. It'll be at the Pavilion in Portland. The students I'd like to recognize tonight for everyone is Amanda Gramsey, John Saubeck, Lindsay White, Michael Oliviero, Patty Reedman, Erin Sullivan, Lauren Lindell, and Ann Raymond. And these have been juniors who've worked real hard as well. There's a larger group of kids who've worked on this dinner dance prom, but these are the 7 who've really spent a lot of time working with the place where we're going, to the Pavilion, as well as Black Tie Caterers who will be helping us out. About 200 students will be attending. I have about 30 to 35 parents who have volunteered their time. And I'd also like to thank and mention Barbara McLean and Marsha Babiak, who have been the 2 parents who have helped coordinate that. Doors open at 6. They close at 6:30. Students need to be there. We will contact parents if students leave early from the prom, to let them know that they're not at the Pavilion. Again, it's a dinner dance. Doors will be open from 8 to 8:30 for parents to come in, take pictures, and visit with the students for a while, to have some fun and interaction with their sons and daughters. And then at the 8:30, we've been told to ask them to leave so they can begin to have some fun. So I'm real excited about the potential. Again, the students have, and again, we've talked about this before. And it's they will determine how successful this will be. We can have all the rules and policies going in place. I think they really feel that this is a tradition that they want to start. And these juniors, and it's primarily the junior class who have worked extremely hard to make this go. And whether it's 200 or 300 kids there, we just want that to be a fun time for those 200 to 210 kids that have bought tickets. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for Friday night. And if you're free on Friday and you like to stop by, the pavilion's a great place to drop in and watch the students. Also, some other dates, and again, this is in the newsletter, and I think you've received this in your packet. Wednesday, May 28th, will be our National Honor Society inductions, and that will be held in the cafetorium, as we've done that the last couple of years. The 29th of May, the musical Once Upon a Mattress begins. It'll be the first of 4 performances. Wednesday, June 4th, will be the high school spring concert. That'll be in our auditorium at 7. Thursday, June 5th, will be our Evening of Excellence, and again, we've changed the format. Not only will Evening of Excellence will be an opportunity for our book awards, but Maroon Medal underclassmen receiving their Maroon Medal Awards will be inducted at that point. The seniors will be inducted at their senior banquet on June 12th, and then June 13th, weather permitting, graduation will be at Fort Williams, and Governor King will be one of our speakers at graduation this spring. So, in this letter, the letter was in the newsletter with all of these dates. Any questions from the board?
Rick, I'm just curious as to how many students helped to facilitate the search results.
We had approximately 23 or 24 students, and these were, again, primarily juniors. We did have some seniors. The idea, Katie Lisa spent a good amount of time working with the students. These were also many of the students who had visited the middle school earlier to talk about this, the bridging of the gap sort of thing that we talked about at the last meeting. So many of the students were still involved in that, and there were about 3 or 4 seniors. The idea was that with underclassmen there, when these 8th graders arrived at in the 9th grade, that there would be familiar faces and people that they could connect with. And from what I understand, and just briefly seeing Kevin Sweeney, he said that the students did a wonderful job, and they came back and felt real good about it too. So I'm glad to see that interaction and kind of the unity between the 2 buildings as the kids get together. So about 23.
I was a part of that group and just wanted to pass on the compliment that they did a very impressive job.
Thank you. That's good to hear.
Great job.
Any other questions? Or?
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
And Tom.
Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to mention that Jack Malcolm, last month's principal for a day, became a minor celebrity nationwide. He got a write-up, I think, in Florida and California, and radio stations from around the country called him. I don't know if you heard him on the radio.
I saw him on CNN, Headline News.
Yeah.
They did it.
Right?
I was watching, I was listening to it.
Yeah, he's moved on. He's not here tonight. I did get a letter from one of his classmates, Haley Griffin. It's become such the idea of being principal for a day has become such a hit. She'd like to make it more democratic. She would like to, and I think the PCA will probably do it, make this a lottery next year. I think the idea would be more fair if we were all able to have a ticket for $1, then someone pulls a ticket out of a bucket, and that person could be principal for a day. If everyone bought a ticket, you'd probably make about $700. So I thank Haley for that, and the PCA might do that. I got a letter from Peter Geiger, chair of the Maine State Board of Education, just the other day, who sent a letter of congratulations and a certificate to 2 Pond Cove staff members who are part of the Teachers Who Make a Difference program. It's done through Shop and Save, and it's part of the Teacher of the Year program. So 3rd grade teacher Ren Wilkinson and guidance counselor Sarah Berman received this distinction. I just wanted to let you know that. And I think last year this was level 1. They might go on further. I haven't gotten any details from Augusta. So congratulations to both of them. Just following up on the E equals MC squared group, we met again today. Do you remember that's the group that did not get the grant? But subcommittees have formed to farm out parts of the grant, and one subcommittee has sent a letter to apply for a grant from IBM. It's kind of open-ended, and the grants run from $50,000 to $500,000. So they've pulled out the technology part from the larger grant, sent it on to IBM, and we should be hearing about the next steps probably in a month or so. Steve Conley, who is a member of that group, has pulled together a learning results grant. I think Cynthia has the letter of assurance, and we'd like your approval for that one. It's for $17,500, not the $6 million we expected, but it's in the realm of professional development, and it would involve teachers from all 3 districts working together in science and math. And the grant itself, we got feedback about the strengths and weaknesses, and NSF has changed the rules one more time. So we are going to try to incorporate the feedback we got, respond to the new rules, and get that grant off in a similar package, but emphasizing our strengths more by the end of the summer. We should hear about that. In further science news, I don't know, did any of you have 4th graders? No, but we were able to, the 4th graders, you do, right. We were able to pilot a new standards assessment project last week. All 125 or some odd 4th graders took what will eventually be, I think, a nationally standardized test in science. Part of it was written, but the part they really liked was the performance-based exam. They got to do experiments and do lab write-ups in a controlled circumstance for about 50 minutes. And it's all hush-hush. You have to ask your kids what it was about. I'm not supposed to tell you what it was because it's a prototype. It was very exciting, and the kids seemed really to enjoy it. More science. Since our last meeting, the core group that's been kind of shepherding the science curriculum development has met a few times and interviewed representatives from various commercial sources of science curriculum and material. In a sense, we're doing this backwards in a good way. We have the curriculum framework and the learning results, which I think will eventually pass, and the reps were interviewed on that basis. So we started out looking for materials K through 8. We did not find a lot out there for 7th and 8th. The committee met, I think Kerry's here, he might want to speak about it later. We met a lot, and we learned a lot from each other by interviewing the representatives and looking at the material. And summaries of those results went to a larger meeting just last week of about 20 Pond Cove middle school and high school teachers who spent the day at the Learning Center talking about where we stood with our curriculum development, and then looked at samples of the good curriculum. Out of all this has come a decision to recommend that we buy the FOSS science program. It's a full option science system, originally developed through NSF of all people, but teacher development part of it's really strong. It does core units in each grade up through grade 6. We also we met with a representative just yesterday from Prentice Hall to find that, to kind of fill in the gaps with known topics and standards K through 6, and the same thing for 9 through 12. It became suddenly easier to talk about 7th and 8th. So I think we'll probably have a recommendation for what we'd like to do with 7th and 8th very soon too, but we really want to talk further with the 7th and 8th grade teachers. As for the cost, it's not so bad really. If you K through 8, I think if we did it, the figure that we'd like to leave you with probably is $20 a student, and we have about 1,200 kids, K through 8. So it would be no more than, we'd do everything, $25,000 to have a complete science program, K through 8, and the replenishment costs after that would be far less from year to year. Nobody has fainted, so it's really not bad. The Pond Cove Parents Association has generously agreed to allot $4,000 of their fundraising efforts to Pond Cove's purchase of materials, and I understand the Middle School Parents Association will do the same for the middle school. So we seem to be there, and the teacher feeling is that there's a lot of enthusiasm, the material seems good, it fits in with a lot of the things we're already doing, they'd like to go for it, with the understanding that we would have professional development opportunities over the summer, and we've already budgeted for some of that. We get some points through buying the material, and we have Eisenhower funds to help with that. So this is one of those things I think that developed more quickly than I ever thought. So next year, the program will be there. In 2 years, I think it'll be up and running and in good shape. The key thing, as we think about particularly at budget time, about reorganizing and giving people responsibilities, we really have to manage the supplies and material very well. I think in the beginning, we'll take very good care of it because it'll be a novelty. We'll be watching every rubber band. But in the future, we have to build in something so that somebody's watching over this material to keep it going. So if we ever do get a curriculum coordinator in science, we will now have something to coordinate, which I'm really pleased about. Carrie, did you want to say anything, add anything to that? No, that's all. Okay.
I just want to thank you for all the hard work, and I'm thrilled to think we are going to have at least a K-6 program and then work on the 7th and 8th. The school board does fund curriculum, and, you know, the parents' associations can fund supplies, you know, that are associated with it.
Right.
But it is the school board
Right.
to approve and fund the curriculum. And I just want to be sure that we do have some kind of information on the curriculum so we can be the ones
Right.
to approve it and then, you know, allocate the costs that are associated
What
with it.
we'll do probably next month, I can give you the sample packet now. We didn't want to overwhelm you, so you'd be able to see it, and we can give you the whole show probably next month, so
That'd be-
even bring the kid over so you can see
Yeah.
it. But this is what Carrie's put together to give you a summary of the process and then a sample of one FOSS, full option science system unit, which all the teachers are very enthusiastic about it. I completely agree with you. I just wanted you to know where we are and that.
Great. No, totally applaud that
Yep.
we are actually getting somewhere.
Oh, he does this.
Charlie, oh, no, Carrie?
Tom, I have a question. In this program, how much flexibility does it have?
For where the units are, or?
For change, because science is evolving.
A lot. It is very heavily field tested in the beginning, and they are, for example, they only have 4 units which work really well, and they are developing new ones probably as we speak. And we did notice that 4, in some cases, is not going to be enough to do it. I think in the beginning, it'll be just right, but there are things going on in the schools now that will supplement even this FOSS thing. So I guess the good answer to your question is it's a research-based, field-tested system, and they're not allowed really to sell their units directly. They had to job that out. The NSF wouldn't fund it. They funded the material and the research, and then when they came time to market it, they gave that to someone else. So I think the answer to your question is very flexible and will respond to the times.
What we primarily tried not to look at programs that were heavily based in things like astronomy that's changing so quickly. What we tried to do was base programs that had the basics down in topo reading, earth science classes, fluvial studies, physics and chemistry that really doesn't change over time. The hearts and the guts of the program are going to be consistent. They're going to be there, but there is modification that's allowable in the program.
Yeah. And the new rate seems to be when a text is advisable, the publishers, this isn't FOSS, it's Prentice Hall, the publishers have taken the text and broken it down into specific units so we can pick and choose, and that way they get to revise them more quickly. And the buzzword for that, instead of mini text, is modules. So you can pull the Earth Science unit out of the big text, and the kids won't get sore arms carrying the 30-pound text.
That was my whole point, to
Yeah.
find a system that's flexible.
It seems to me to be a good balance, that when you start the unit, there are certain goals and objectives, but even the grade level placement is flexible. That's why we were so impressed with it.
Will the older kids be able to jump right into the program without having the benefit of doing it in the younger years?
The middle school kids?
Yeah, the fifth graders or sixth graders where they haven't had it as...
The feedback from the teachers is yes, they'll be able to do it, because although it hasn't been fully organized and focused, they were taking a similar tack. This way, they'll be in agreement and grade level standards. For instance, the FOSS people recommend kind of an indoctrination to the scientific method in grade 3, I think, and again in grade 7. So again, I think the answer is yes, so they'll be able to do it.
Great.
Yeah. We're still a little worried about 7th and 8th, but I guess that's a national concern. There's just not as much material for what has traditionally been the junior high level. But we think we have a solution.
Pam?
A solution for next year,
Yes.
you think?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you for all your work.
Yeah.
You all have worked awfully hard on this, and
I, for one, really applaud your initiative, and all of you. All of you have been working on it. You've taken a very sticky problem and coming up with a solution. It's just great.
It is ranked as one of only 3 national accredited programs by the NSF that the NSF would accredit. We like, as a teacher, a lot of resources for the teacher, but it started as a special ed program in the mid-'70s and then moved into the regular classrooms right after that. And so it has a lot of special ed features built into it and a lot of integration with mathematics. So we're pretty happy with it. So I think everyone will be.
Great.
And we're going to make changes. The high school will realize after seeing what K through 6 did and what 7 and 8 did, that we may have to go back and do some things in the sciences at the high school level to fill in the gap that they won't be getting K through 8. So it was good for us to look at that too. So we're working on that too.
It was just good timing, too. The Learning Center really helped out with the exercises of looking at curriculum through the framework analysis. The teachers who did the workshops really got good at it. So this is really based on kids' needs. I also have to say that Kerry's a really flexible guy. He really wanted a textbook in the beginning, and now he's, I think, come along a little bit. So I appreciate that.
Well, I'm just so glad we are really going to have something to do, start in September. I'm just thrilled.
It seems like a bargain, particularly since if we had gone textbook, I don't think I would have approved it anyway, but textbooks are far more expensive.
Yeah.
So. And one other announcement, Sue reminded me to any kindergarten parents watching, next year's kindergarten parents watching, we have done the draw for AM and PM sessions, and you will be notified by mail. So please stop calling Sue. You can call me.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Any other questions? No? Oh, is there a question?
I didn't know whether Sue, did you want to speak tonight?
Oh, sorry.
I have a couple of announcements for the general public. We did have our day camp lottery on last Monday night. Things went very well. We registered over 350 children in the day camp program. But have no fear, we do have spaces left. We stayed open from 7 to 7 on Monday so that those that did not participate in the lottery had a chance to walk into the office and register. Since that time, we've probably taken in 50 to 75 more. Cape residents have priority through this Friday. As of Monday morning, we will start accepting non-resident registrations. So if you want to be sure that your child grades 1 through 5 have a place in the day camp program, I suggest you get in there this week, because come Monday morning, I believe we will fill. But there are spaces in all age groups, not necessarily every activity, but there are spaces in the day camp program. Middle school camp has registered about 75, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. We do take 50 a week. Every week has a minimum of 44 or 45 registered, and some have 48 or 49. So there are very few spaces left in the middle school camp. So if you haven't registered and you want your child to participate in that, that already has been opened to the non-residents. But I would suggest, if you want a space in that program, that you get in very soon. Preschool camp registrations were accepted via the mail, and to date we have spaces in all programs at the preschool level. Once again, we will start to accept non-resident registrations next Monday, the 19th, for the preschool program. So again, I suggest you get in this week if you want to assure yourself a space. An update on extended school care for next year. The 3 to 5:30 program is filled all 5 days of the week. We have taken in 95 children at this point. We are maintaining a waiting list because there will be some attrition. We're also waiting to see what kind of spaces we'll have for next year, as well as what the staffing will be. So we are maintaining a waiting list. If you have a child that needs care during kindergarten hours or before school, there is space up until the 3 p.m. dismissal. So the only part of that program that is filled to capacity at this point is the 3 to 5:30. Any questions?
When are we going to decide whether we're going to expand that program?
Well, we're having a space meeting next week, and then we'll be determining where some of the spaces are going to be available in the high school, if any. And once we determine whether or not there are spaces available, then we'll start looking into some staffing.
Didn't we talk about maybe doing something at the middle school or Pond Cove?
We did, but again,
Is that,
the space issue needs to be resolved.
I just think it's so important to meet these needs. You know, I think, if the alternative for a lot of these people is sending their kids home to nobody, I think we ought to do our absolute best.
One of our concerns, too, is the staffing piece of it.
Right.
It's very difficult to get people to commit just from a 3 to 5:30 time span, and we can offer them some split shifts during the morning time, but most of the people that we're soliciting are people who already have children, whose children are coming home from school, or college students, and we're trying to, attract some of those students as well to work in the program. But right now, staffing is a concern. I mean, we barely have a full contingent of staff as it is.
Can we not use high school kids?
We can, but we can't use them in the capacity of providing the appropriate ratios for licensing. We have to provide, I guess it's a 1 to 12 ratio for school-age children to be licensed. And then we use them to fill in, to bring our ratios down to about 1 to 8 or 9, but we can't use them in that 1 to 12 ratio.
So what would you expect, if there is no new space, how many students would you expect you would not be able to serve? I realize it's an estimate, but...
Well, this past year, we had about 25 on the waiting list as of January, and I would suspect that we would probably be in a very similar situation to that.
So that's a lot of children.
Yeah.
I really believe we can solve the space issue. We will find a space for this within the schools, and I just think you should try to work on the staffing piece and see if you can, so we can meet the needs for these people, because I really think we should too. The space is there, even if people don't want to give up their classroom space, but we're talking about hours when regular school is not in session. We can find the space.
Any other questions? I'll keep you posted on how things are going as well as how staffing's going,
Great.
but I know that we're much further ahead at this point than we were a year ago. I don't think we had all of these figures together until mid-July, so we are trying to look ahead and plan ahead, but I know that, staffing's of a great concern to Janet in terms of trying to staff.
But maybe there's some education students or college students who are free in the afternoon who would appreciate it. Maybe we can try to tap into some of those
I was just going to
resources.
suggest SMTC, for example, has a 2-year program, and those students,
We have
certainly the second-year
one
students would
working
be able,
from
right.
there now, and we do have some USM students.
And they would be able to accommodate their class schedule as well as working, so.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Sue, for all your hard work. Committee reports are next. Charlie, Finance?
The Finance Committee met this evening at 6:30 in the Chamber's conference room. We signed warrants, reviewed appropriations. The business manager did an update on our federal funds. We reviewed the athletic director's salary, and a nomination will be coming forward later under new business. Andy Stroud came before us to explain a adjustment to the track athletic for the need for some supervisory help. That nomination will be coming forward under new business. We reviewed the school lunch income statement, reviewed postage guidelines and controls, a new photocopier control which will be implemented July 1st, and reviewed field trips for the remainder of the year and fund balances relative to those.
Thank you, Charlie. Any questions? Policy Subcommittee, Gail?
The Policy Subcommittee did not have an April meeting. We are going to be having a meeting this Thursday, May 15th at 7:45 a.m. in the council chambers. The items on the published agenda called for a review of the harassment policy that has been worked on from the first readings from last month's board meeting. That will be tabled. It was sent out to for legal counsel. We're working on that, and it will be ready for it will come back to the board as a first reading, hopefully in June. But I am adding to the agenda for the meeting on the 15th a policy on public gifts and donations to the school. We'll talk about have an update from Rick on the student eligibility, and we're also going to be reviewing all the policies from all 3 schools that will be included in their handbooks before publications to make sure that we have consistency in those. And I guess that's it until second readings.
Which is right next on the agenda. So Gail, go right ahead with second readings.
Okay, so for tonight's second readings, we are approving the LAU plan, which is an administrative guideline, IHBEA-R, service to limited English proficient students. Then file IHBEA, limited English proficient students policy, second reading. And file GBEBB, prohibited employee sexual contact. Those are my 3 policies.
Okay. Sorry.
That's all right.
A few things going on this evening.
Okay, would you like to make a motion, or did you?
She hasn't.
She hasn't. Would
I
you like-
move we accept the guidelines and the 2 policies as read.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? 7-0. The next item on the agenda is the school calendar. And I will just give a quick summary. The calendar committee met last week, and the recommendation coming out of that committee is for the next calendar year, to stay with the traditional February and April breaks, and to study the March issue further for the following calendar year. And that is to speak with other school districts to work out the paths issue, and a lot of other things that came up from the varied parental input we got. I did bring a large envelope to put in any letters that school board members got that they want to include, and I know school board members were keeping track of their lists. Gail and Ann and I and Cynthia were at the calendar committee meeting, as well as some administrators and the association rep. And we heard a lot of good information on both sides of the issue. And I had already done some preliminary contacts with some other school boards, and everybody has been thinking about it or has other issues they want to deal with the calendar. Scarborough really wanted to throw out there they'd like the last week in August and would love to really get going the last week in August and let school out earlier in June. That was one board member there. There are a lot of different possibilities, but we felt at this time we needed to study it a little bit more. We do not have a regular calendar to approve tonight because we still were not sure of the exact placement of the teacher workshop days. But we felt it was important to let parents know, for planning purposes, that school will start for pupils on September 2nd, which is the day after Labor Day. That's a Tuesday. And that the traditional February vacation week, which is the 16th to the 20th, and the April vacation week, the 20th to the 24th, were to stay. And we didn't have the exact dates of the Christmas holiday yet, but those should be enough for planning purposes, and we would have a full calendar to vote on at the June board meeting once we'd gotten feedback from the teachers on some options for the teacher placement day, teacher workshop days. And I guess I'd also like to say, it was probably, a very hot issue because I received lots of phone calls on this. I won't say it's what I've received most phone calls on, but it's interesting that, when you're talking about vacations, people really listen up and, we're thrilled. We really were asking for feedback and input, and thank everyone for that, and I hope that they will have the similar response as they are evaluating their child's program that they have gotten this year, and everybody should have received a form by now through the 3 schools, and I would really encourage everyone to, again, in that area, give us your feedback. Charlie?
One of the feedbacks that I got that I think people need to understand, that there is a process here. There is a calendar committee that meets every year, has met every year as far as my children have been on the school board, in the school system. Can you kind of explain the composition of that
The committee?
committee?
Yeah, there's always school board reps on it. There's always teacher reps, and we contact the association to provide us with those reps. And there's administration representation. And I would say this, and community services. This year, Phil Jewett served on it as the administrator. But in other years, we've had more administrators. And Sue Weatherby as community services director was there, and Claire Labrie as our special ed director was there also.
So I think people need to understand that there is a process, and that looking at the calendar has been discussed at least the last 4 years, and to make the insinuation that this is a last-minute decision or a last-minute proposal is untrue. And I think that's a disservice to your board, and it's a disservice to the people that serve on that committee.
Ann?
I just want to thank all the people who did give us their feedback, and a lot of people did. I mean, I know I got a lot of phone calls and letters, and I had some great conversations with people who came down on both sides of the issue. And I do, want to stress what Charlie said. There is a process here, and we've batted these ideas around a lot in the past few years, and people have, just volunteered their opinion over the years. And it seems, like a legitimate way to get people's attention to say, well, what if we did this, and ask for the feedback? But that's exactly what we were doing. And we've gathered an awful lot of good information. Some of it has very little to do with when the vacations are, but they're weaknesses in our scheduling, or how, when all the tests are kind of lumped together in certain grades or projects and that kind of thing. Problems with the paths schedules for some of the kids who go there, and they're missing parts of their classes. So it actually raised a lot of issues that I think we need to work on. So, people should always feel free to give us their input, and that's exactly what we were asking for. This was never a done deal. It was, I suppose, if everyone had called and said, this is great, March is great, we would have done it. But the whole point was to get the feedback. And I think there are probably going to be a variety of things that are happening out of this. One of our biggest concerns is how to deliver staff development activities in a way that is meaningful for the teachers. One of our big problems is, we've got days kind of scattered here and there, and they're kind of placed wherever it seems most convenient in the calendar. So one thing that we really did ask the teachers to do at this last meeting is help us come up with a plan to deliver staff development at a time and in a way that works for teachers, but not at the expense of student learning. And I think that should be the bottom line of all our discussions about these things. And it's an ongoing process.
Keith?
I agree with Ann that it's great to have this discussion. I think one of the things that's our responsibility to look at, if we're going to talk about these types of changes, is more hard data on the advantage of the change. I think the general feeling was that the possibility of the change was not clearly communicated, that it would be some major advantage to our educational process. And I haven't seen enough of the hard data, and I don't think the public has either, as to why we might want to make this change. So I think as we study the effects on our different student populations and vacations and family vacations, that type of thing, we also have to make sure that we study why maybe we should make this change.
George?
I guess I'd concur with Keith. I think the issue is such that this is more than just a calendar review and some minute changes. This was a fundamental change, and I think that in order for us to entertain fundamental changes, we have to really understand, not only understand, but clearly articulate what the goals are. I applaud the effort in terms of looking at the calendar under the larger issue of continuity in our educational programs. And I think that given the broader scope of the impact of the proposal that was made, for example, I think that it does require a little bit more than just a calendar committee meeting. I think it involves opportunities for more involvement from staff, more involvement from parents, to say that continuity in our educational program, part of it is going to be the calendar, but maybe there's other things that we can look at and take a more holistic approach. I think that the process is a fine one, providing that there's not going to be such a devastating and fundamental change. And I think that in many ways, people, the public response that I received was that it really kind of came out of the blue. And again, I think that I'm a very strong advocate of continuity in educational programs. I mean, I would like to see the summer shorter. I'd like to see some very interesting and innovative things that we can look at, but I think that we need to sort of move everyone along together when we're proposing such a big change. And my suggestion and recommendation would be that perhaps we create a study group. You know, we don't always come up with the best ideas, and we shouldn't adopt a not invented here philosophy either. I think that there are probably other school systems throughout New England that are struggling with this same question and have probably done some pretty interesting things. And I think that perhaps we should take a look at what other communities might have looked at, and if in fact continuity in programming is our goal, and that's what I interpret to be the goal of any kind of calendar change.
Other comments? I guess it wasn't supposed to be a devastating change. It was never thought that changing from a...
It was interpreted by many as being...
Well, it was your words that it was a devastating change, but I think it's really raised all of our consciousness to how important, you know, the calendar issue is. You know, we will study it some more. Great. Next item on the agenda.
Do you have to approve that or anything, or just?
No, the calendar will come to us next month as a final form with circled days and everything on it counted out. We weren't ready for that tonight because of not knowing when the teacher development days were, but we felt for parents' information, the starting date and the traditional vacations were probably enough to get us to the next month. The next item is the consideration of a request from a teacher for a one-year unpaid leave of absence. I think you have in your board a letter.
Green sheet.
Thank you. And is there any discussion, or would anybody like to make a motion? This is the one-year leave of absence.
Are you waiting for me to make a
No,
recommendation?
I don't know. Would you
I'm
like?
sorry, we have another issue going on here, which is under control, we hope.
I was interested in the superintendent's comment on this.
Okay, I would like to make a recommendation, if you haven't already had one.
No, we haven't.
Okay. Generally speaking, a one-year leave of absence is granted for teachers who are going to pursue some additional graduate work, or in some cases, if there's been health issues where a teacher needs a year off. The difficulty for the system with a one-year leave of absence is that you're limited in terms of the pool of candidates, that you can only hire someone who's going to do it on a one-year basis. So people are not willing to leave an established job and come and take a one-year job. So you really, pardon me, you do diminish the number of applicants. In this case, we did table it last time, and we had some additional information from Randy. But basically, the connection between what he plans to do next year and his classroom or his job is not as strong as it generally is in a usual request for a one-year leave of absence. So given that, with some reluctance, because I know it's not a popular recommendation, I feel that I really can't recommend that except my only condition would be if you wish to approve it only on the basis if we can find a qualified candidate in the near future. But that apart from that, I really feel I can't recommend it.
Keith?
Do we have any contractual obligation for a one-year leave of absence?
No.
No, I didn't think so.
No. I don't, and I can't really speak to the precedent here, so I don't know what past history is.
We haven't approved every
You have not.
request, have we? I don't remember approving every request.
No, we take each one separately.
Each one separate.
Charlie?
My concern would be the nature of what he does. The fact that he does teach some part of computer education, and he teaches technology. If we could not find a person to fill that position, we might have to find two people. It might have to be a split FTE position for a year. That's an option, too.
But certainly, if you're willing, we could advertise it right away and see what the pool of applicants is like. But I am concerned about limitations.
As an average, I know that teachers and people in jobs do get burnt out. What is usually the average number of years before someone asks for this type of a leave? I mean, this is a teacher who came into the system right out of school, so he's been teaching 8 years.
I would say that's a fairly short space of time. Certainly, my experience has been that it's people who 15 years, perhaps 12, 15 years. Unless it's graduate school, in which case that could be a short space of time.
Anne?
There are two things that bother me, and one is that we're at a point where our technology director is really trying to, move ahead on putting together these curricular pieces, and if we have a person who's in the middle school who's just, who's just there for 1 year, and then we maybe have somebody coming back, I think it holds us up, and I think the middle school is not a good place for that curriculum to be held up. But also, as I recall, when we tabled this last time, we asked specifically for more information on how he saw this leave would benefit the students and how he would grow as a teacher, and I frankly don't see anything in this letter addressing that, so I wouldn't support it.
Does anybody want to make a motion? Anne?
I move that we not accept Randy Perkins' request for a one-year unpaid leave of absence.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? 7-0. The next item on the agenda is new business and consideration of the superintendent's nomination of a second-year teacher.
Right. I wish to recommend to you that Cliff Nelson be hired for a second year. He's been with us this year as a first-year teacher, and it is my recommendation that he be continued to a second year. He is a high school teacher, science.
Do I have a motion?
I move we accept the superintendent's recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Keith? Any discussion? All those in favor? 7-0. The next item is the consideration of a request from two teachers for unpaid leaves.
Right. These are just short-term leaves where people, in one case it was to attend a family graduation, another was a family event, and I have approved these because the dates were such that they were all occurring before the board meeting. So on your behalf, I did approve those. We do need to change that language in the teacher's contract because there were too many time constraints with that for the short-term leaves.
So do you need a motion?
Just to confirm my action, please.
Is there a motion? George?
Make the motion that we approve the short-term leave request submitted by two teachers and approved by the superintendent.
Is there a second?
Do you need names?
I'm sorry?
Do you need names?
No.
Is there a second? Was that Priscilla?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? 7-0.
Thank you. We have a retirement from Keith Weatherby, who is retiring from the teaching portion of his position.
Is there a motion? Charlie?
I move the acceptance of the request for retirement from Keith Weatherby from teaching.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Charlie?
I would just like to say that Keith has taught in our system, I think essentially since he got out of school. And he has been admired both as a coach in his early years of teaching and as a teacher, and he will be sorely missed.
Thank you. I know he will be sorely missed as a teacher. Any other discussion? All those in favor? 7-0.
And continuing on with Keith Weatherby, I would like to recommend him to the position of nomination of athletic director at .75 time.
Is there a motion? Oh, Priscilla?
I move that we accept the superintendent's nomination for .75 athletic director, Keith Weatherby.
Is there a second? Discussion?
Can I just get a clarification? Do we have to be more specific in light of the discussion we had in the Finance Committee about the salary? Because I think that's an open issue at this point. I don't know if that's important.
You can read that into the motion if you wish. It's a .75 position, and the salary is
33,750.
That's correct.
But I thought there was an issue with that amount.
But not as far as the motion is concerned. I think that's his issue.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Do you want to amend that to include the amount, or?
No, I just thought that he had a limitation that meant it wasn't going to be that full amount.
We need to issue the
Okay, but
contract in that amount.
And then he can pay any
If there needs to be an
penalties or
adjustment.
whatever.
But it would work for him. He'd have to work out something,
Yes.
but it would work for him.
Okay.
All those in favor? 7-0.
Some
go ahead.
additions.
Yep.
Right. Today, I received a resignation letter from Kurt McCandless, who is a teacher at the high school. He has taken a position in Oregon.
Oh, sorry, we'll share.
We'll share.
Is there a motion?
I move we accept the resignation of Kurt McCandless from the math department.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ann? Any discussion? All those in favor? 7-0. Did you vote?
We have
Good
an
luck.
athletic nomination, Martin Keene, to be track supervisor. This is a one-year position.
For 7th and 8th grade.
I'm sorry, yes, for 7th and 8th grade track.
I move the superintendent's nomination for 7th and 8th grade supervisor for track.
Is there a second?
Second.
Keith? Any discussion? All those in favor? 7-0.
And I need to do the grant assurance based on Tom's presentation, and this is just that you will support the submission and hopefully the continuation of the science grant.
Is there a motion?
How do you move on it? Nobody knows how to move on it.
Sorry, Tom.
What do you say?
Just that you support the submission of the science grant, and that you assure your support of it.
Gail?
So move.
Is there a second? George? Any discussion? Hope we have good luck. All those in favor?
Better luck this time, right?
7-0.
And that's all I have.
Then we need a motion to enter executive session to discuss a personnel issue, student issue, and negotiations.
Can we just do a clarification first on the dates to remember on the back of our sheet? The organizational meeting isn't on there, and I assume we're having one?
Yeah, it would be the June
No,
No,
the
it's
June
May 20th.
9th.
Oh, that's not.
June 9th after the
June 9th.
new school board members are
Oh,
sworn
June
in.
9th.
Yes,
You don't have to write it down, Gail.
Oh, it's
Yes.
not me?
Right, it would have to go.
yes, it would be June 9th at 7:30 swearing in and upstairs immediately afterwards. Charlie?
I would also like to thank the town council for approving our budget for the 97-98 year.
Yes.
Should have done that under communication.
Gotta lighten up.
Are there any other announcements? The policy committee will be meeting this Thursday morning at 7:45, and the next regular school board meeting is on June 10th. After that organizational meeting, we also have a workshop on Tuesday, May 27th, for the review of the health curriculum, and one on Tuesday, May 20th, for a superintendent's meeting with existing board members regarding reflection on this past school year.
It might be good to note that at that May 27th meeting on the health guidance curriculum, we will likely be seeing some proposals about revamping the Chewonki program in the middle school into a program that incorporates all 4 grades. Anyway, stay tuned. We don't have a lot of information yet, but the teachers who we've been working with at the middle school thus far are gathering input from the rest of the teachers, and they seem very excited about it so far, the people on the committee. So.
Well, then we need a motion to enter executive session.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Gail, all those in favor? 7-0. Thank you.
The different exams.